Africa's strategic importance has only grown, with transnational terrorism on the rise, as well as China and Russia working to undermine our interest on the continent. As you heard in my opening statement, we need to be putting more resources in AFRICOM to combat what China and Russia and Iran are doing, rather than looking at taking away attention and resources.
Now, as I've said in previous testimony, Africa remains a nexus theater from which the United States cannot afford to shift its gaze. Africa is a nexus theater for the great power competition, and then also with a number of violent extremist organizations that are encroaching upon the continent. It is a threat. It is a threat to our homeland, and it's a threat for our overall national security and protection of our national interests. Many of our security and economic interests overlap with those of our African and European partners.
Yeah, we back. Yeah, we back. Now, Patreon exclusive. Listen, link in the description, pinned comment at the top. Join the Patreon and gain access to several videos, a bunch of videos that have never been uploaded on YouTube. You already know it was most likely the fact that I touch on topics like these. That's probably the reason why the channel got demonetized, but I want to say, much love to the Patreon family. It's really the Patreon family that's keeping the lights on, right? So if you part of the main YouTube family and you haven't joined the Patreon family yet, you need to pay homage and show respect and say thank you to the Patreon family, because they're the ones that, even though YouTube tried to get your boy out of here, the Patreon family rallied behind me, and they're the ones that's keeping the lights on. They're the ones that keeping it going. They're the ones making it possible for me to continue to, pump out the good content. Like I said, all independent, all funded by my own people. I'm not taking a single dime from the adversary. Just like I said on the album, just like I said on my intro track on the album, Cap Henry in 1814, I was like, told me she loved me and said that it's real. So independent, ain't signing no deal. Feel like a king and I'm up at Cap Henry. I'm in the citadel, top of the hill. Like I said, man, so independent, I ain't signing no deal. So like I said, once again, much love to the Patreon family. If you have not joined the Patreon, head over there, because I had a lot to say. Go check out my reaction to General Langley's most recent testimony at the Armed Service Committee. I believe this video was actually put out by the United States Department of Defense YouTube channel. So, go ahead and check it out. They touched on a variety of topics, the African continent most importantly, but as well as they also touched on the Middle East. And I also made a connection between what they said about the Middle East, specifically Syria, as well as their interest in Africa. So Langley, he made it plain. He says Africa is the nexus theater for the global power competition, right? He not pulling no punches. He's telling it straight up and down. He's telling it like it is. Like I've always said the African continent is of the utmost strategic importance, right? That's why all these nations of the world, like I said on the previous video, are bum rushing into our lands to establish economic agreements, military security agreements, geopolitical and diplomatic agreements, because of the strategic importance of the African continent. Langley even said it. The African continent is way too important for the United States to shift its gaze, right? They said they can't even afford to look away from the continent. That's how much they're coveting the continent. They said, listen, we cannot afford to even shift our gaze. We cannot afford to take our eyes off the continent, bro. Langley said it straight up and down. And to me, like I said, I got to go back to when he said Africa is the nexus theater, right? It's going to be the central theater for the global power competition, right? And when you see terms like the global power competition, that means that Africa, right? The man that controls Africa, the resources in Africa, has influence and dominance on the continent. That is going to be the man that controls the planet. That is going to be the man that sets the rules. That is going to be the man that controls the terms of trade, right? The rules of engagement when it comes to trade. That's going to be the man that has access to the natural resources. That is going to be the man that can influence global institutions. That is going to be the man that is going to be able to shape the future, right? He said that is the battleground for the great power competition, right? So like I said, man, they let it be known. I mean, I've been saying it on my channel for years and years. And, like I said, mainly, maybe now you're going to believe it because, the top U.S. brass, the top U.S. generals are now repeating what I've been saying on my channel for years, right? But they let it be known. They let it be known. Everything needed to dominate the century and beyond, it's in the continent, right? The man who controls the continent controls the world, right? So black men, we have all these foreigners, these outsiders, these non-African males sitting around talking about Africa is the major battleground for, the great power competition, right? Now, Langley, he's a man of African descent, but clearly, as you can see, he's talking about our European partners. He said, our interests align with our European partners. So as you can see, the United States is aligned with their European brethren in regards to their interests on the continent, right? So U.S. interests and European interests overlap, right? Langley said our European partners. Now, of course, he's a black man, so a black man saying he got European partners sounds crazy, but you got to understand, he's not speaking on behalf of himself. He's speaking on behalf of the Pentagon, right? He's speaking on behalf of the U.S. military-industrial complex and the power structure, right? So he's simply an agent of the power structure, a mouthpiece of the power structure, right? A figurehead for the power structure. So when he's saying what he's saying, he's speaking on behalf of our adversaries, right? So black man, I've been telling y'all this. They saying what belongs to us, what was given to us by the Most High, what they've been attacking us for since the days of the Arab invasions and the Middle Eastern invasions and the guys coming from, the Near East, right? The guys invaded from Western Europe. The guys always bum rushing into our continent from the north and from the west and from over the oceans. The reason why they've been attacking us for centuries is because, like Langley said, Africa is the nexus theater for the great power competition, right? That's why we've been under siege for centuries. We've been under siege for as long as recorded history, because Africa is of the utmost strategic importance for the great power competition, like Langley said. And in another video on my Patreon from last week, like I said, you got to join the Patreon, man. If you part of the YouTube family and you haven't joined the Patreon family, I'm telling you, man, you're missing out, brother. You're missing out. You're missing out on several videos that will never be on YouTube and have never been uploaded to YouTube. So like I said, you got to join the Patreon family. But in another video from the Patreon, I reacted to an interview where Langley basically said that the African continent does not need to be militarized, right? So on one hand, they say that Africa is the main battleground competition. And then on the other hand, they said a black man does not need to have the capacity to defend his borders, to defend himself against hostile actors and foreign adversaries.
The continent of Africa does not need to be militarized, let's put it that way. Does not need to be militarized. And so we watch, as far as security agreements and what does it mean? Is it really for...
Like I said, man, these are the things that we'll be breaking down on the Patreon. I already broke down that interview from like last week, right? The Patreon family, we already discussed that, right? But for those of y'all that didn't see that one, like I said, they talk out both sides of their mouth. They say Africa is the central battleground for the global power competition, right? We cannot afford to look away. But at the same time, they say that African militaries should not be heavily militarized or heavily armed, right? So Africa is the main battleground competition, but the black man should not be militarized to his full capacity. You see how they talking both sides of their mouth? And that's one of the main reasons why the United States does not sell high-level weaponry, high-level arms and ammunition and weapon systems to African governments. They don't sell them. They don't sell it to them, right? They don't even want their money, right? And the United States is all about the money, but that's crazy, right? So even if you have, and I made videos on this in the past, right, where you had, for example, I believe the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Mali actually said that, right? Nations like the United States and France, they refuse to sell us weapons, right? We have the money, we have the gold, we have the resources to leverage to acquire the weapons. They refuse to sell it to us. They don't even want our money because, like Langley said, the African continent does not need to be militarized. But at the same time, the African continent is the central battleground for the global power competition, right? So that's like, let's say, okay, so that's like being a landlord, right? They're saying you are a landlord, and you are in possession of some valuable property, some of the most valuable property to ever exist, right? But they're telling you that you do not need to, buy locks for your doors, right? You don't need to buy surveillance cameras. You don't need to make sure that you have a security system. You don't need to make sure that you're, well protected and well secured, right? Because what they're saying is, listen, you can outsource that over to us, right? You can collaborate with us and we'll ensure your security instead. So you don't need to militarize yourself independently and be self-sufficient. You don't got to do all that, right? Because they know if you have the ability to defend yourself to the utmost capacity, that means that you can really begin to assert your dominance and your sovereignty. And due to the fact that they said that the continent is the central battleground for the global power competition, they know that if the black man is in full control of his borders and his territories, the black man is going to be the one calling the shots in totality. And isn't it crazy how just essentially doing what's best for us is framed as a threat to their interests, right? Being militarized and being heavily armed and able to protect yourself and your civilian population, that is a good thing. Why do you not want me to be protected and well secured and have the ability to defend myself against hostile actors, right? Why is that framed as a threat to your interests? Why is my prosperity and protection framed as a threat to your survival? And that's why I say, man, that's why I refer to certain groups and individuals as the adversary, because this is textbook definition of an adversary, right? My prosperity is framed as a threat to your future. That's crazy. My prosperity is framed as a threat to your existence and your survival. That's crazy. That is truly crazy. But anyways, I'm not going to be here too long, man. Go over to the Patreon, man. Sign up for the Patreon family. And just a heads up, man, I'm about to be on vacation. But like I said, the link in the description, my email is in the description. So if there are any topics while I'm away, if there are any topics that come up that you want me to touch on, I'm currently backed up with a lot of topics already. So, but if there's any topics that come up that when I get back, next week that you want me to touch on, listen, hit my email and let me know, right? Hit my email, let me know, because I'm going to be out the loop. I'm not going to be, on social media like that. I'm not going to be all the way tapped in with what's going on. I probably, check in every now and again, but I'm not going to be all the way locked in. So like I said, hit my email, keep me, up to date on what's going on, the latest developments, things like that. As you can see, I'm trying to get out a lot of videos, before I go on vacation right now. I dropped like 3 videos overnight last night. So, now I'm hitting the Patreon with it. Go over to the Patreon. I just dropped a video breaking down Langley's testimony at the Armed Service Committee. Check it out. Great content, great commentary. Listen, I'm not gonna say it again. Head over to the Patreon, man. Anyway, it's your boy Neferkari. That's Salim back in the Billy. Yes, indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the Patreon. NTD 1814. Link in the description. Pin comment at the top. Support the album, Sahel 1816. Go to my homepage, go to my playlist section. Enjoy the album. And I'm gone. Peace.
Told me she loved me and said that it's real. So independent, ain't signing no deal. Feel like a king and I'm up at Cap Henry. I'm in the citadel, top of the hill. Trying to run up, but we let off a cannon. Secret location, I'm keeping it sealed. You ain't retaliate, Franco Medina. Came to the country and he got killed. You ain't retaliate, Rafi Mans. Thought you was loyal, thought you was real. Didn't even want to come pick up the body. Had your man locked up, he died in the cell. Up at the palace, I'm throwing a party. Right on the south and I'm giving them hell. And my little shorty, she looking exotic. African features, she casting a spell. Run to the check like I work on my fitness. Wake up each morning and handle my business. Say that she love me, she want my genetics. Wanna get married and make it official. Gonna get married and have my babies. Up in the city, I'm riding Mercedes. Up in the city, they treat me like royalty. Feeling like Dolph, talking about lords. Spreading my wings and I had to get fly. Up at the top, an incredible vibe. Came from the bottom, I'm up in the sky. Gave one look and said, baby, you fine. Wake up each morning and handle my business. They just be talking, you see me, I live it. Ride on my enemies, sounding like thunder. 1804, got that shit in my spirit. 1804 when I step in the building. 1804, and that's word of my mother. Rock my women and die for my brother. Never gonna fall when I'm deep under pressure. Tell them we back and they better accept it. Move like a king, every step is divine. Ride on my enemies with no exception. Taking revenge and I'm taking what's mine. Pour up a drink and it's time that we toast. Watching my back, keep my enemies close. Only the family, I stick with my brothers. Cannon's position outside of the coast. Heavy artillery for the protection. Move like a general, stick to the code. Feel like a king when I'm up in the north. Beautiful women, they trying to get chose. Launch an invasion all over the south. Capture the capital with all my woes. Look at my energy and my demeanor. Dripping that ice and that's head to my toes. Lately I'm flexing all on the Americans. Flexing my muscle on missing my road. Just got a carriage just coming from London. Boy, that shit cash, I ain't taking no loans. Boy, that shit cash, that's fresh on the boat. Enemy know I got millions in gold. Enemy know I got choppers and cannons. How did I do it? They can't understand it. How did I do it? It's cause I'm relentless. Call me King Harry, my name is cemented. Call me King Harry, I'm up in the palace. Call me King Harry, I'm raising the status.